What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Bischoff and Brown right here on the Detroit Lions podcast. He's Scott Bischoff. I'm Russ Brown. We're back. It's been probably about 2 weeks. Some personal things came up for me that I don't really care to speak about, but just one of those things. Just did not have time to really sit down and do this show. And Scott had some stuff as well. So just our schedules didn't really align with everything that's going on, and especially with the draft. I mean, both of us so deep into it. It was just hard to find the time to click record. But we're back for one last episode before the first round of the 2024 NFL draft. We very well could be doing something maybe Friday, but we can talk about that offline. But, we'll get into all that. But Scott, my man, how are you?
I'm well. I'm really excited for Thursday. How are you?
Dude, I am so pumped for Thursday. Yeah. Just excited. I mean, I dread the process coming to a close. I'm excited for, some time off away from all of this, but at the same time, I feel like a kid on Christmas, man. I really do. It's all I'm thinking about. I'm doing my final, we talked on the phone earlier today, and I'm doing final mock draft prep, and I'm looking, and every name I put at pick 2 and 3, I delete and I go back to square one, and it's just Caleb Williams and everybody else. I have no idea.
Yeah, whatever.
Nobody knows. And I think we're going to get into some questions, but I just I do want to throw this idea out there for people, because there's so much of this, and this happens every year. I mean, the betting market goes bonkers for, 2 years ago it was Malik Willis at 2 to the Lions, and then it was Will Levis last year, and Levis falls to the second round, and now we're seeing the stuff with Jaden Daniels and the heavy favorite to 2. And it's I could still see Drake May or J.J. McCarthy. I really could see J.J. McCarthy. And then you hear this stuff about the Cardinals trading out of 4, or, the Jets trading up, or the Bears trading up. And it's I think we're getting just a little too crazy. And I just got a feeling it's going to be very black and white, straightforward. Marvin goes at 4, Joe Alt maybe at 5, and very basic. Does that sound crazy?
No, but it's completely the very different direction of the way I'm operating, which is fun because I guess we might as well just get into this beginning of the draft part, and then we'll get to the questions.
Yeah,
later. But so I do think Jaden Daniels is probably, whatever. I think he's the pick at 2. Mm-hmm. Whatever, whether we think that's good or bad, I just think that's where it is, right?
Yeah.
And then at 3, it's a wide open thing. I think the Patriots have tried to play this game that they want to make a trade, that they're willing to trade out, but they're also telling people that if that doesn't happen, they're perfectly comfortable taking a quarterback. And it just seems like those two statements do not at all jive with one another. They're completely contradictory things. So I think they desperately want to trade out, but want to get a complete bounty for it.
Yeah.
And if they're stuck, I think then it's all right, do you take the quarterback maybe too soon for where they are as a team? Or do you take a foundational piece like perhaps Joe Alt, who, I really probably the best. I mean, I think he's the best tackle in this class. I'm not sure it's close. The problem with not taking Alt at 3 is I think if you allow him to get to 5 with the Chargers, my assumption is the Chargers go Joe Alt and make him a right tackle and feel super, super happy about that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it is, where I'm thinking. But then again, I also think that the Giants could totally trade up to 3 for May.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that being a thing, and on draft night thinking, well, okay, I guess that's a thing. I've been told that the Minnesota Arizona deal is already done for whatever that's worth. We'll see. If that happens, I would fully expect Arizona to come back up. From what I understand, they may not have a wide receiver. They may have Romo Duns as their wide receiver 1, and want to get potentially a little value, but they're playing a super risky game by doing that. So if you're stuck at 11, you can't get up. You're not going to get the wide receiver 1 you coveted.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the game that they played. They played that game last year, so we'll see. I think that's all interesting. I don't know what. Yeah, I could see the Colts have been. I know you've heard the same stuff. The Colts are trying to make a move up. I don't know how far they're willing to go, but are they willing to go all the way to 5 for Marvin Harrison Jr.? His dad played there. That seems to me like a Jim Irsay kind of move, like an irrational, who gives a shit about what it costs kind of move, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think at 6, it's either a trade up for May, or I could see Neighbors going there to the Giants. I could see Neighbors being a Tennessee Titan. I don't know what they're going to do if Neighbors and Alt are off the board, but I would kind of expect that to be the case.
Yeah.
I don't know what the Bears are going to, what the Atlanta's going to do. I've been told that they like Latu a lot, but and then with Turner, I don't know. Do you think Turner's a fit for? I think he's a better fit for Tennessee's defense and for Atlanta's defense, because they run those 3-4s as a stand-up outside backer than he would be for like at 9 to Chicago. I'm not sure if he's a great fit there.
I would agree with you there. I think he would be a great fit for Denver if he made it to 12. Dallas Turner, that is. And then it also depends on if that trade happens with Minnesota and Arizona gets to 11, do they just stay put and they take, Dallas Turner if they can't get up to get Rome Odunze? Do they take the pass rusher there? I mean,
maybe. I think they'd maybe making it where Tennessee's wild to come back for Tennessee to go back to 11, for them to get up to 7 for Odunze. Yeah.
Well, I do want to throw one scenario out there for the Cardinals, and like you said, it's a done deal. It sounds like that they're going to move from 4 to 11. We'll obviously see what happens.
Find out. I don't know. I mean, there's no done deals, and the person whatever. He's been wrong before, but he's been very accurate before.
Yeah,
there are other. So generally, it's like you hear a bunch of stuff, but if you hear it from 2 completely different places, totally different places, then it starts to have some validity.
Yeah.
So I hear it from one place, and then you hear it from, like, okay, these people are not connected at all.
Right.
So are they hearing the same shit from the same people? I don't know. But anytime I think you hear it from multiple places that are not connected, you give it more credibility than other stuff. No.
But my thing is like if let's say that is, I'm not saying it is crap, but let's say it is crap and it doesn't come to fruition, and Arizona does what I think they're going to do and stay put and take Marvin Harrison Jr. because he is the best player in the draft and he makes sense for them. We often, I think, forget that Arizona has pick 27 too.
Yeah.
And I just I was running this trade scenario in my head driving home today, and the Dolphins don't have a ton of great draft capital. They have pick 21 and 55, and they have 100 spot gap between their next pick on, from day 2 to day 3. What if they moved from 27 or from 21 to 27 and got pick 66 or pick 35? I mean, the Cardinals have so much capital.
They do.
And the Dolphins could go from 21 to 27, potentially grab Xavier Worthy out of Texas, and let's say they somehow got pick 35. They could possibly get Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon at pick 35, who some think they might take at 21. And it's just all of these scenarios happen, man. And it's just I have no idea what the fuck it's going to, I just don't know what the fuck it's going to be. I really don't.
I hear you. There's so many. I think that Byron Murphy makes sense to Chicago at 9. In a scenario where the receivers are gone.
Yeah.
I do not think a player like Joe Alt gets past necessarily Tennessee, but he certainly wouldn't get past the Bears. No way.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I mean, they had Darnell Wright last year. You had Alt, that kind of stuff. I don't know what the Jets are going to do. I really don't know what the Jets are going to do. I've heard, again, we've heard, both of us, this is where you give it a little credibility. The Colts are trying to come up for a receiver. That receiver is likely Brian Thomas. It's really going to be super expensive for them to get up to one of the big three.
Yeah.
Brian Thomas, 6'3", 209, probably runs in the 4.2s at the LSU Pro Day. He ran 4.33, I think, in Indy, and the LSU track is faster than Indy's track, right? Neighbors ran 4.41 at the LSU Pro Day. If he runs like 4.28, 4.27, whatever it is, at 209 pounds,
and
that's how teams are thinking of him. The issue there is, I don't know. There's an injury that's being discussed, possibly a shoulder kind of a thing that might limit his his training kind of before the training camp starts.
Yeah,
I don't know that that's really a thing that would bother some of these teams. If he's got a labrum problem.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a thing that would even really knock.
I don't think so.
That teams would say, yeah, we're going to wait on him or we're going to pass him because of that.
Right. As long as he's really ready by like week 4, 5, or 6 of the NFL season of year one, I think that's okay. If you can get 12, 13 games out of Brian Thomas Jr. as a rookie, especially if you have a pretty decent quarterback, like if you're Indianapolis, where you have Richardson.
And Indy's not doing it for what they're going to get out of him for the first 6 weeks of this season. They're doing it because they want to pair him with Anthony Richardson and that kind of stuff. So
right.
I just I don't know so much about that, and I don't know truly how out there that Thomas stuff, or if that stuff is to be believed.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah, and the same thing is happening with Troy Fautanu. There's much to be desired there, but there's a lower body injury that continues to get brought up when you talk about what he provides at the next level and where people value him. And it's like, well, if this continues to come up, does he slip at all? Does he go to, the Rams at 19? The Rams have been often right now the last week or so linked to offensive tackles.
I hope he falls to 29, baby.
It would be awesome. That would be a sprint to the podium. I don't think he does, but
yeah,
it's just such a guessing game, and it's so fun. And I'm almost, it's frustrating from the business side of it because I just want to be right, but it's so fun because it's like everything is so close to the vest this year. It is so different from what we saw in years past. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah, for sure. It has been buttoned up, and it just feels like over the last couple of days, it feels like there's been some info that's come out, but whatever. Yeah. Let's get into some questions.
Yeah, let's do some NFL draft Q&A. Really, what we wanted this show to be about was just taking people in our Slack channel from Detroit Lions podcast, take their questions, and the people that follow us on Twitter at Russ NFL Draft, at Bischoff_Scott, which you can see below. You go ahead and smash those follow buttons. But one of the first questions that we got here was from Big Biting Pig on Twitter. Every year, Brad Holmes selects someone in the first or second round that nobody was mocking to the Lions. Who is that person this year? So who's the one guy in the first or second round that you could see the Lions taking that nobody has really talked about whatsoever throughout this process? I already have one guy in mind for the first round, and maybe we've already kind of talked about him, but Zach Frazier from West Virginia, I still think is very much in play there, the interior offensive lineman in the first round. Most mock drafts that you see, it's like we're taking a corner, we're taking, maybe an offensive tackle, maybe we're taking a pass catcher. Not much interior offensive line conversation there. So I think he'd be an interesting fit there at 29 and just really fits for the longevity of that center card stuff.
Is this guy asking for a name that nobody's connected to the Lions? Is that what he's asking?
Yeah, somebody that we would see that nobody's really that this player's not really been connected to the Lions throughout this process, that nobody would really see us taking until the night of the draft, whether it be night 1 or 2?
Roman Wilson, wide receiver, Michigan, Screams Detroit Lions player, has been a professional operating throughout his high school days and into Michigan. Wouldn't surprise me a bit. Is he undersized? Yeah. Is he small? Is he redundant with Amon-Ra St. Brown? Yep. That's okay. He's a really good football player, and if you're talking later on day 2, yeah, okay.
Okay. Look, I agree. I think we've talked about Roman Wilson. I think he'd be a great fit here. So I'm with you 100%. I think he'd be a great fit. Jack Rabbit Troll asks, better odds that the Lions move up or down in your opinion? What are your odds that they stay put? I don't have necessarily odds. I think if they move up in the draft, I think it's for a pass catcher or Cooper DeJean out of Iowa. Yeah. And realistically, I could see them trading back simply because of the noise so much of the Washington Commanders trying to move up and getting a tackle. Yeah. I could see them moving back to like 36, getting 2 day 2 picks, and then they just make Friday night just a hell of a night. But I see them staying put at 29 and taking the best player that fits them at that point. I don't know.
So I think it's probably like 75% chance that they stay put, and probably like 40% that they trade down.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. That's 115%.
Yeah, your percentages are way off. Not a math guy.
Go to a math class. No, I'm being super sarcastic. I think, it's always tough to do the trade up or trade down thing. But if we're looking at trade ups, to me, it's like, okay, are you going up for Quinion Mitchell? And if you are, you might have to beat Philly, who's I think they're trying to do that with Denver right now.
Yep.
And I don't think the Lions can beat that. Or if Jared Verse falls into the late teens, early 20s, would you do that? Sure. Latu, same kind of thing. But I just don't think that's reasonable to think those guys will be there. Yeah. So I think it's much more likely if there's a trade, it's a trade down. They have a 91 pick spot where they don't have picks between pick 73 and pick 164. I think they need to fill. We've talked about this. They need to fill. They need to fill that area with a couple of selections, or at least one.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to trade down. So I would think that it's much more likely, significantly more likely, that they trade down than trade up. But like you said, I think it's, the chances of them trading down or up from the first, and we're talking pick 29, are slim. The chances are slim, but I would say, 10 times more likely for them to go back than up.
Yeah.
Whatever. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, and I mentioned Washington. Washington has picks 36, 40, 67, 78, and 100 on day 2 of the draft. The Lions only have 61 and 73. So if they moved back from 29 to 36, they would obviously get pick 36 and probably pick 67 or 78 and maybe pick 100 or maybe pick 139 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's more than reasonable. That gives them plenty of leverage for day 2 and day 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we'll see. Next one is from Parker Notsky. For all the top position groups the Lions have been speculated to need in the draft, what is one if they didn't target that the current roster could handle? For all the position groups that the Lions have been speculated to need in the draft, what is one if they didn't target that the current roster could handle? Okay, so if they didn't draft this position group.
We're talking edge, wide receiver, interior O-line, or corner. If they don't target those 4 spots, which one could they handle?
I would say interior offensive line. I mean, just off of where they're at. I mean, like corner, I still think they either need a veteran or they need somebody as a draft pick there.
Yeah.
Edge rusher, I'm not fully sold on Marcus Davenport. I like the other guys on the roster. I'm not sold on Davenport. Wide receiver, you could probably get by with what you have, but I don't think so. I think you need another pass catcher.
They definitely do.
So, yeah, I think for me, it would be interior offensive line because you have Colby Sorsdale. You have the number 74 guy. His name's on the tip of my tongue. I can't pronounce his name, though. Yep, you have him. We know we're getting out of Glasgow and Zietler. We have Ragnow. I would love to see the interior offensive line. It just fits how they're kind of built, but
yeah, no, I think I agree with you. I think it is interior O-line. Glasgow helps there. But we all got to remember that after the draft, there's still a bunch of players that are available in free agency. So there's some things that could happen, especially like at wide receiver. There are players that are still around.
Yep.
So there's a ton of safeties. There's some other corners. So, but I think the one position that probably could survive for this year, if injuries aren't horrible, is O-line. I agree.
Moving over to the Slack channel, we got one from Grant. Moving forward, if you were never allowed to draft a position in the first 3 rounds, could only fill via free agency or kind of like day 3 of the draft, what positions on offense and defense would you pick? If you were never allowed to draft a position in the first 3 rounds, what positions on offense and defense would you pick to build and develop later in the draft or through free agency?
Guard, center, tight end.
That's a great list. I would agree with the guard. I would agree with guard, center.
Maybe let's say running back instead of tight end. I don't know.
No, I think you're right there. I would probably take away center. I think it's valuable to have a really good center, especially if you have a young quarterback, which is why we've seen guys like Ragnow and Billy Price and those guys Ryan Kelly go in the first round. Might not have worked out, but for Billy Price, but I think there's some value there. So I would agree with you. Running back, tight end, guard, probably that. Defensively, man, that's a tough one because I feel like it's so hard because like if you need a impact interior defensive lineman, and let's say you pick 15th, and there's a guy that's worthy of that spot, you take him. You draft good football players.
Yeah, I don't see that's on defense. It's tough. I mean, I think you could probably fill the linebacker role with later picks, but I don't know that you can fill. You can't do it with corner. You can't do it with edge. You can't do it with interior D-line guys.
Maybe safety.
Maybe a little bit, but even then. So let's say linebacker and safety and give them 2. That's the best we got.
All right, that's fair. From Logan McFadden, always a good guy in the chat there. If we were to draft Cooper DeJean, assuming he falls to our first pick with no trades, would he play safety or corner for us? And then thoughts on Ladd McConkey out of Georgia, and if he would be a fit for us.
Yes, he would be a fit for you. Yes, Ladd McConkey would be a home run pick for them. In terms of specific to what Goff prefers his wide receivers do, Ladd McConkey is probably the most the best guy that you would put with Goff, and what Goff has preferred out of his receivers. Out of this entire class of route runners, McConkey is it.
Yeah.
What was the first part of the question? The brain is just short.
If Cooper DeJean falls to us in the first round, would he play corner or safety for us? Where would he play?
I think he would play safety. I think the Lions have done a lot of man stuff. I put this in the Slack chat yesterday. They've done a lot of man stuff over the recent past couple of seasons, but just because that's what they were then doesn't mean if you add a player like Cooper DeJean that you don't play more zone concepts, because you've got Kirby Joseph, who I think would function significantly better in his own system. Cooper DeJean strikes me as a player who isn't going to transition great with some hip stiffness or whatever you want to call it. He doesn't have the lateral mobility that you want as a corner, but as far as seeing things in front of him as a zone player, absolutely. So you add DeJean, and I think you add more zone concepts to what you do in the back end of your defense, and it makes a ton of sense. So I would see him as a safety, and some in more zone looks than they've given us in the last 2 years, and maybe that's a good thing. I mean, I think we got to wonder what has their personnel dictated, and also you just brought in Carlton Davis, you got Amik Robertson. There's an opportunity to make some changes as to what you're doing. It's now. So maybe, I mean, it's a really good question. And I think the DeJean thing makes some sense. As much as I really didn't a month ago, I do now.
No, I think you're right. You're hitting the nail on the head. And I also think like he would come in and kind of play that Gardner Johnson role that we kind of expected Gardner Johnson to play. Yeah. So obviously we'll see, but there's been a lot of connections to Cooper throughout the process. And I'm with you. McConkey would be a great fit. He would fit almost any offense, but Jetty John Fred says, if this draft is, we got probably 3 more. So if this draft is deep on O-line and wide receiver, like we've been hearing, wouldn't it make sense to draft those positions later and focus early on positions like end and corner, assuming value aligns? So I get this question, but it falls into the kind of the mindset of drafting a good just draft good football players. And
I think he nailed the problem in his question, is that value might not align.
Exactly. No, exactly. And, there's not really, like, to me, there's not a pass rusher outside of the top 3 that I would be like, maybe Darius Robinson, just simply because schematically he fits Detroit. But like, we've been over the chop thing. I'm not taking Chris Braswell there. I'm not taking Adisa Isaac at 29. Like all those guys, I'm not taking. So I don't see us moving up maybe they would move up for Jared Verse. I don't think they're going to get in position to get Latu or Turner.
Yeah.
In a corner, we mentioned Quinyon. We would have to probably try to beat the Eagles to make that deal. And that doesn't seem likely. Yeah. So I mean, like, if the best position available and that fits you is O-line or receiver at 29, I think you take that. So I think that's what that.
Great thought, and it's normally I would totally agree. It just depends on the draft,
right?
In this particular draft, I think corner value is better later, edge value is better later, and as deep as the receiver. I mean, it doesn't mean they can't take a receiver or an offensive lineman later. They should.
Exactly.
But if there's one that stands out as a player you should take at 29, you should do that too.
Right. No, I agree. The last one from the Slack channel, and then I got one more on Twitter, from Mike Hodges. Which player can you see the Lions falling in love with enough to move up into the teens to land? I know you mentioned Quinyon as a corner, but I think Tyrion Arnold would be the one that if they just absolutely loved in, like, let's say 16 or 17, and they're just like, we want this guy, we're going to move up and go get him. I think that would make some sense. And I say that because I think teams value what Nick Saban says about the players that he has coached over the course of time. And he said the best defensive player he coached this year, that they've had this year, was Tyrion Arnold. So I think teams are going to value that. And I think the Lions would be like, oh, hell yeah, the way this guy plays, bring him to our team.
Yeah, so let's just bypass the Mitchell thing and just assume we assume the Lions can't get to that point.
Yeah.
To me, it is Tyrion Arnold, and then it's a player like Jared Verse. After that, I don't know that you're trading up so much. I mean, I would love for them to, because it would be super exciting, and I wouldn't have to stay up until freaking midnight. I'm an old man
yelling at the clouds over here.
I'm telling you. The old man stuff has gotten very real very quickly. This is bullshit. I don't know why I went there.
Because you're old.
I think Tyrion Arnold would make a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Helps to compete now. They do have they could give him a little runway. Jared Verse would take that defensive line and make it next level. Because he's very different than Hutchinson. He is a dude, but is he going to be in the situation? Is he going to slip to the 16-20 range where you could trade up? I hope so. It'd be great.
Yeah. And I mean, with Jared Verse too, like he screams Seattle Seahawks to me with McDonald there and stuff like that. Like
but doesn't it also scream Lions too? Like it
does. I think when you look at the identity of their secondary in Detroit here, Amik Robertson, physical guy, wants to come up and hit. Brian Branch, physical guy, want to come up and hit. Tyrion Arnold, just they fit. They would have a trio of just dudes. So
Yeah.
I would love to see Tyrion Arnold. That'd be a fun one. And then the last one here is from Lion Pride 8123. Do you think they sprint to the podium if Johnny Newton is there at pick 29? Talking about the Lions.
There was a point where I would have said, hell yes.
Yeah. Not so much.
I don't know if I'm not. Yeah, I mean, are you hearing anything negative about him? I've heard a little bit, like, maybe falling a touch, but it's the fractured foot. I mean, as far as like being an undersized pass rusher on the interior, he's a dude.
Yeah,
he is. But does he really fit what they're doing? You have DJ Reader, you have Aleem McNeil as your 3. He is an undersized 3. I don't know where you play him. You're almost drafting a backup at that point. I would love it because he's a super good football player. I just don't know that he fits exactly with where the Lions are.
Yeah. I just struggle with if he's going to be there. Like, if Byron Murphy's gone at 9, the Rams have the need for the defensive tackle. If they, do they take him at 19? You look at the Dolphins; they have that need. Do they take him at 21? The Cardinals at 27. The Bills at 28. Even the Packers at 25. Like, there's quite a few different fits for him before Detroit, and then just depending on what positions are there, I don't know if they, like you mentioned, that it's not like the biggest need in the world for them. And I think they really value DJ Reader. And I think they want to make it a point that, hey, they really value him, whether it's a 2-year deal or not. They really want to get the most out of him. And I don't think you get the most out of him by adding a player to his position.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm assuming Reader plays as a 1.
Right.
I think Newton's more of a 3. And that's Aleem McNeil's position.
Yeah.
So yes, I know there's a rotation where you could say you could ask Aleem to play as a 1 and relieve Reader at times, and then Newton would come in and play more snaps than we think. But in the end, Newton's a really good football player. He's very disruptive. He closes. He was super fast. He'd be very intriguing. It's just the redundancy of what they already have.
Yeah,
makes you think that that's not the greatest idea, but I've also talked about redundancy with Brian Branch is a great thing, and redundancy with Amon-Ra is a great thing. So I got to be consistent. And yeah, I mean, if you're going to find a really good interior pass rusher at 29, that is an absolute home run. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, it's pick 20 freaking 9.
No, I agree. No. It makes a lot of sense. I would love him. I think he's a hell of a football player. I think he's the best defensive tackle in the class. But just, I don't know, the way this whole thing's been kind of aligning, it just doesn't feel like it fits. Maybe it does. Maybe that'll be the guy. I don't know. But
we'll see.
I know we're trying to get out of this show in one piece, but I got to bring up Restore real quick for our friends over there. We got to pay the bills, and I want to throw kind of gun to the head draft pick of the week, powered by Restore, aka what is the Lions pick at 29? So I'll let you think about it as I read off of what Restore offers. I got to tell you guys about them over at Restore Hyper Wellness. Maybe you're an athlete, you've got a kid like myself or Scott, and they're athletes, or maybe you're trying to get back in the gym, you're not recovering like you used to. I got a solution for you. Go check out Restore Hyper Wellness here in Northville in Birmingham, Michigan. My son and I both go. We love it. He's a 3-sport athlete. I'm in the gym a few times a week, and we just restore our bodies by visiting Restore. They've got everything you need, from compressions to cryotherapy, even specialty services. And you know what? With the draft being here, there's going to be players there from the NFL draft. I've been seeing them the last couple of weeks. Darius Robinson's been in there, guys from Michigan State, Michigan, all that stuff. So you might run into some guys that you're a fan of. So go check them out. They've got tons of special offers right now, things such as 2 cryotherapy sessions for $30. You can save 50% on your first IV. They'll also give you 10% off if you drop our names from the Detroit Lions podcast. So go check them out over at Restore Hyper Wellness. Get back to doing more of what you love. So draft pick, if pick 29 is happening right here, right now, and most people when they hear this, as it'll probably drop on Thursday morning, what do you think is going to be the pick?
I'm going to be super boring and say Zach Frazier. He just, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a fit.
Yeah.
And it's a long-term fit. It's a short-term fit. It's boring as hell, but whatever. It makes sense.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. That was going to be the guy I was going to choose. As much as I would want to say Cooper DeJean, or DeJean, I'm going to butcher that forever, so I hope they don't draft him. I don't think he'll be there. I don't think they're going to trade up for him. I could see Darius Robinson, but at the end of the day, I think it's Zach Frazier. So I'm with you. Obviously, we'll see what happens. I have no idea. I might not even have Zach Frazier in my final mock draft, so I don't even know.
But right now, right here and now, that's our pick.
All right, that's what we got, and we would love to see what you have as far as who the pick 29 will be. And you can let us know by commenting below on this video right here on YouTube. And of course, you can rate, review, and subscribe to the Detroit Lions podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all other podcast platforms. But that's going to wrap it up for us as we kind of close this book, getting to the NFL draft of 2024. We'll talk about doing a show on Friday, maybe recap what happened the night before. We'll kind of see where we're at. But you got anything else for me, my man?
Nope, we're good. Good luck, everybody. Have fun.
Yeah,
Enjoy
good luck. Have fun. Be safe downtown. Get down there early. All that good stuff. But he's Scott Bischoff. I'm Russ Brown. This has been another episode of Bischoff and Brown right here on the Detroit Lions podcast.